we got it ready from Fractal. Let's go ahead and count them down to our first match here of the blue bracket. Here we go in 3, 2, 1. Tetris. And there we go. We can confirm that this is same piece sets because the first 5 pieces have been the same. So very interesting matchup here. We have both players with a main play style of rolling. And I believe at one point they also played dash and hyper tapping. I know Myles is one of the few players that has the trifecta max, which is having at least a max in all play styles. Arguably, Myles might have a trifecta 1.2 if I'm to be honest. But to start things off, Myles having to do just a small amount of burning is going to fall behind Fractal. Fractal opening up flawlessly here. And Myles in need of an I-piece in the center. Can't quite get that T-piece all the way over to the left. So this could get a little tricky to deal with. That's going to burn down a double. Let's see how Myles is able to solve this. But Fractal just continuing to play at an incredibly high efficiency here. Just waiting on the long bar. Myles had to use it for a flat burn. Fractal knocks down 1 Tetris and is set up for another and knocks it down. Already up to a 100,000 point lead. But it looks like Myles should be in a position where he might be able to get out of this sooner rather than later. He's getting a lot of good pieces. Nice adjustment for the J. It's going to open up the center well. And now Fractal's having to do a minor amount of burning. Nothing too serious. And Myles is just going to get the stack under control. Fractal knocks down not 1, but 2 Tetrises. 214,000 to 84,000. And Myles actually went for a pretty smart burn right there. Hopefully he gets all the required pieces. Needs an S piece or an L. S piece would actually be amazing here. Now just needs the I piece to follow. Or that combination works. So Myles is finally clean, ready to start scoring. And he's going to need to. Fractal is at 240,000 points. Is having to do a little bit of burning, so Myles can close the gap slightly, but Fractal has just been absolutely destroying it so far in the pre-transition. Nice little adjustment over there for Fractal. Gets the perfect T-piece, and Myles now has the board under control, so we have 130,000 point separation. Fractal at 267,000, and Myles at 138,000. Interesting is going to decide to avoid holding out for any too deep piece. Forced to take a burn, so wasn't able to utilize that long bar for a Tetris. However, the stack is clean. There it is. Tetris for Myles and Tetris for Fractal. All right, Tetris for Fractal. And Fractal right now is looking around the high 500, maybe even low 600k territory. Myles is looking around 400, 450. So, rather 450 to 500. Definitely on the lower bound of transitions. However, 18 isn't the end all to games. We've seen some games where 18 was almost completely negligent, especially in our previous matches here in the Masters bracket. But right now, both players looking pretty clean. Looks like they are running into a drought. Fractal holding out for the long bar. Both players stacked up pretty high. And both of them are going to get 2 long bars, and they can't score 2 Tetrises off of them either. But they're able to knock down a simul Tetris right there. 437 to now 3 at 10. Myles has actually closed the lead by 1 Tetris. Still down by 100,000 points, but with the proper amount of play on post-transition or even post-29, that can be made up. Anyways, both players are Tetris ready. Fractal with a minor misdrop. So this is going to cost at least 3 lines to have to burn out of. Myles is able to seemingly capitalize on it and knock down a Tetris, closing the gap to now being down by around 105,000 points. However, a long bar dependency is going to force Myles to not utilize that long bar for a Tetris, but can use the next one. So not to too much of a detriment, still maintaining the same deficit, but Fractal having a lot of uncharacteristic misdrops here. And we are only 7 lines away from the transition. The ability to roll, Fractal can definitely survive this if you were to transition up this high on 19. But the thing is, Myles can utilize this opportunity to diminish the lead or maybe even completely neutralize it. As both players, oh my gosh, Fractal goes for a dirty Tetris, transitions at 538. Myles transitions at 429, knocks down a Tetris immediately upon a transition. Fractal able to still hold on to just around a 90,000 point lead. Both players are clean, holding out for the long bar. Fractal gets the long bar, knocks down Tetris, and so does Myles. 480 scratch that, 505 to now 594. Myles down by only 2 lines, so this is a definite lead for Fractal, but Myles was able to close the gap slightly because of Fractal having to do all those burns towards the end of the pre-transition. And Fractal with another misdrop forced to burn 3 more lines, so if Myles could get a Tetris here, could definitely capitalize, but it appears that both players are running into a drought. Myles is forced to burn all of the burns that Fractal had to ensue because of a misdrop, and the drought continues to fall harder and harder. And Myles was unable to capitalize using that long bar. Myles is Tetris ready now, decides to take a triple, avoids setting up another long bar dependency. Beautiful placements right there. Both Myles and Fractal are Tetris ready, and Myles just burns out of Tetris readiness, knocks down a Tetris, but now trails by 120,000, 570,000 for Myles, 694 for Fractal. Scratch that, 723 for Fractal as he knocks down a Tetris here on level 23. Right now, Myles holding out for the right pieces to get Tetris ready. Gets an I piece, followed up by a perfect L and an I piece. Another Tetris for Myles, down by 140,000, and line counts are identical. So this is a true lead for Fractal. Myles is going to have to hope that Fractal makes some kind of mistake or are forced to burn a lot, or is going to have to rely on post-29 play if both players continue to match each other's efficiency. Nice adjustment over there by Myles. It's going to allow to a conversion of a Tetris, 675 to now 844. Myles, Tetris ready. Nice adjustments are being made by Myles here. Myles going to go ahead and take the conservative burn. The well is open. Finally gets the long bar, knocks down a Tetris, set up for another one as Fractal knocks down a Tetris. 908 for Fractal and 744 for Myles. So Myles really got a lot of work ahead, down by around 160,000 points. This is not going to be an easy game to come back from. However, Fractal's having to do a slight amount of burning, so Myles was able to slowly take advantage of that, closing the gap little by little. However, is waiting on the long bar. So is Fractal. Both players running into this drought here. And the long bar just is not coming. There it is, Tetris for Myles. Fractal's able to capitalize on the long bar as well. 821 and now 963. Another Tetris for Myles. Goes up to 859. Fractal knocks down Tetris 998. Only a couple thousand points away from the 1 million point barrier. And there it is. 833 for Fractal. Myles can try and grab one more Tetris and so can Fractal. And Myles is going to have to play some killer post 29 here. Fractal knocks down a Tetris, transitions to 29 at A70. Meanwhile, Myles goes at 913, forced to have to burn. Fractal having a little bit of holes to deal with. Meanwhile, Myles looks like he's trying to get set up for a right wheel Tetris. Able to throw those pieces over to the left. All right, Myles is set up. Going to go ahead and skim for a double. Skim for another double. I'm going to just take the triple. Meanwhile, Fractal getting things under control. Looks like, no, not going to go. No, it looks like Fractal is going to try and just really stay alive. Both players might be attempting to scale here as Myles is now only 55,000 points away from the 1 million barrier, but Fractal just crossed 1.1 million. B04 to now 953. Myles looks like might be getting in position soon to possibly set up for a Tetris. No, just gonna skim down. All right, Myles looks like he's getting set up, waiting on the right pieces. Not gonna go for it, just has to burn out. Needs to bring the stack back under control as Fractal's looking basically clean here. Very comfortable, no real issues. Myles, great down stacking right here on level 33. Myles, oh no, a couple of misdrops. Not what you like to see. Myles able to effortlessly get that piece over to the right. But oh no, an accidental rotation. And this might be it for Myles. Myles is going to top out at 989. Fractal at B44 is good for game number 1. Just a dominant game all around for Fractal. Was dominant in level 18, dominant on the post transition, and right here on 29 was able to outlast Myles, just going for some relatively safe placements. But that is going to put Fractal good, and he's going to decide to top out at B77 here on level 36. Let's go ahead and count them down to game number 2. Here we go in 3, 2, 1. Tetris. And there we go. Piece sequencing looks the same, so yeah, here we go. So far, game 1, Fractal was incredibly dominant throughout majority of it. Had a near flawless opener in the first 20 lines, and Myles just kind of ran into a little bit of issues early on, was not able to really match Fractal's efficiency, and it led to there being a near 150,000 point discrepancy in scores when we were just around the halfway point of the pre-transition. And in post-transition, Myles did a fantastic job of trying to come back, but unfortunately, Fractal was just too dominant on level 29. Fractal just simply outlasted Myles, and it looked like he could have gone for quite some time. However, game 1 has been written in the books of this match, and as we turn the page to our next chapter, which is game 2, we'll see how these players are going to perform. Here so far in the first 20 lines, Fractal actually having a couple of misdrops. Has had to burn a lot more lines in this game than he did in game number 1. But, ooh, good pieces right there. Perfect O. Is still going to be looking for a J or an I. That's going to work. Fractal opens up the well and is clean. Both players waiting on the long bar. And Myles' internet just died. Rather, his stream died. I'm not exactly sure what to do here. Yeah, just for safe measures, Fractal keep playing. Hopefully things come back online over there for Myles. Honestly, wow. Okay, Myles is back. 234 to 216. And both players actually didn't have that good of a stack here. And Myles still not really in a good position. All right, nice. Able to still stay alive just barely. Still trying to burn this out. All right, nice. Trying to get access to that hole. Beautiful flat L burn right there. Absolute insane survival for Myles. He does need a J or an I piece over there for the left. And actually does a bunch of brilliant flat burns, and Myles is going to survive. 288 to now 275. Wow, what a down stack. And seeing how both players were up that high, had to have been an incredibly rough piece sequence. Anyways, 296 to now 304. Fractal and Myles both in the board with boards of ideal preference. Really clean, not really too many issues, and ooh, a little bit of a hang right there over there for Fractal. It's not going to be too detrimental. The hang is low enough, and we have plenty of time left before level 19. There it is, Tetris for Myles. Fractal running into, yet again, some more issues. And being the one that's behind in lines, this means that Myles could actually build up a true lead, as Myles will transition on the next 9 line clears, where he does that with 3 Tetrises, 2 Tetrises, and a single or whatever. Looks like it's going to potentially try and go for 2 Tetrises here. Myles set up for one last Tetris. Holding out for the long bar, and there it is. Tetris for Myles, going to transition at 435. Fractal can try and grab 2 more Tetrises, is going to get 1. Can transition at around a 410, or a 411 rather. And there it is. Fractal knocks down a Tetris, transitions at 411. Myles with, ooh, a little bit of an accidental over rotation there. So this is going to cost Myles some burn lines, and Fractal being behind a level has the opportunity to close the gap and give us a pretty even match here in post-transition. For Fractal is running into complications as well, looking for the right pieces. Going to go ahead and take the triple. Myles is just a couple Minos, or rather a couple lines away from being back into Tetris scoring position. Fractal is ready for a Tetris, holding up for the long bar, knocks one down, 473 to now 531. Waiting on the right pieces to fill in that central gap is Fractal, holding out for it, and the piece just isn't coming. Fractal forced to have to do some burning here. Can we see a line spin? Beautifully executed. Fractal just needs an L piece, gets the L piece, needs to burn those 3 lines, and Fractal is ready for a Tetris. 482 to now 587. Myles with a 100,000 point lead currently, but is also almost a full level ahead. So that could translate to the game being a lot closer than it appears, as Myles and Fractal both knock down Tetrises. 538 to now 620. Fractal, beautiful stack right now, knocks down a Tetris. Myles knocks one down as well. However, he's going to have to deal with that hole that was kind of created over there in column 1. And it gets dealt with beautifully, but oh no, rotates in the wrong way and missed the opportunity for the perfect well transfer Tetris. It's going to cost Myles some scoring potential, and this is going to allow Fractal to close the gap to only a Tetris and a half. 627 and now 667. Fractal knocks down another Tetris. 657 and now 667. Myles is Tetris ready, so going to still try and create some gappage. However, Fractal has just been playing incredibly efficient here in these past few levels. Both players knocked down Tetris 720 to 731. Fractal also behind in lines, meaning that he has the pace advantage. However, as we all know, 29 play has become a factor in these games. But in order to have 29 play, you got to make it to 29. And right now, that's what Myles is trying to fight for. Able to get the pieces over to knock down a Tetris. But speaking about Myles fighting, Fractal is fighting. He needs to get all the right pieces. He needs an eyepiece to bring the stack down. He's doing the best that he can and is able to roll the eyepiece over, knock down a vital Tetris, bring the stack down, and is now just working his way back down the stack. 763 to now 812. Myles on level 28. Fractal on level 27. And with that split double, Fractal is set up for a slightly dirty Tetris. 804 to now 847. Fractal still with the pace advantage. But here we go. We are 1 line away from level 29 here for Myles. And Fractal is 6 lines away. Myles is setting up for one last Tetris. Myles is going to transition to 29 at 890. Holding out for the right pieces, actually set up for a Tetris. Gonna go ahead and take the necessary triple, take another triple, and Fractal goes to 29 at 851. So down by 80,000 points upon transitioning level 29. Now we're going to see, are both of these players going to decide and try and scale, increase the amount of points that are worth per line and per Tetris? Or are we going to see a little bit of a blitz, ruin-esque style of play? Myles burning down. Meanwhile, Fractal still down by approximately 60,000 points. Two Tetrises would essentially catch Fractal up. And in fact, Fractal, no, not going to build it up, just going to burn it down. But Myles is set up for the Tetris. Is he going to go for it? Takes the safety double and forced to take that triple. Had to do it. A little bit risky. Really rough drought right there. Meanwhile, Fractal looks like he was trying to get built up. Needs an eyepiece. Not even able to find a way out of it through L's and J's. And Fractal just still burning out. 916 to now 991. Myles only a couple thousand points away from the max out mark. Both players back to just clearing lines here, trying to scale. And ooh, looks like an accidental pause over there for Myles and kind of messed him up, but he's actually set up for a dirty 20, or not 29, but dirty level 34 Tetris. Goes up to A49. Holding out for the right pieces here. Myles just trying to get the stack back under control and has now generated almost a 110,000 point differentiation between Fractal and himself. Both players are clean. Level 35 for Fractal, level 36 for Myles. Myles set up for another Tetris and knocks it down. 1.1 for Myles. Fractal still trying to scale, but if he doesn't start scoring soon and Myles just continues to show excellent survival and excellent stacking, things might get a little bit dire for Fractal. But speaking about dire, Myles just had to go for that 4 left, waiting on the right pieces. Now Fractal running into some complications, able to nail the O-Tuck. Nice burns here so far for Fractal, and it looks like Myles is going for another Tetris. This one's slightly dirty, but forced to burn here. B66 for Myles, and another misdrop for Myles. Meanwhile, Fractal has just crossed the max out barrier, but Myles has to survive this. Fractal has shown to be able to line out, but that left side, can he do something about that left? Able to roll a couple pieces over to the right. Not going to try and throw the long bar over. Instead, is able to get a J piece over to the left. However, it looks like this might be it for Myles. Still trying to do the best that he can, and Myles tops out at 1.184. So Fractal, you need 1,185,000 in order to take this game. You can do this with Tetrises, or you can try and line out down by 150,000 points. But right now, the board is not in a favorable position for Fractal. Needs to try and get it stable. Not able to get that piece all the way over to the left. Needs to get a piece over to the left to try and be safe. Able to get the J piece over. Very crucial right there. And Fractal just now needs to find a way to bring the stack down. More holes are being generated on the stack. Able to get that piece all the way over to the left. A couple of tricky pieces. Really, holes in column 2 are incredibly tedious, but it's not going to happen. Fractal tops out at 1,062,000. So Myles is good for game number 2 and ties up the series 1-1. Looks like both players are ready, so let's count them down to our little bit of a tiebreaker in the set currently. Here we go. Counting them down to game number 3 in 3, 2, 1. Tetris. Hey, that was closer. But what an incredible game by both Myles and Fractal. So far, Myles just was able to have a better 18 and pretty solid 19, and simply was able to outlast Fractal. Those Tetrises that were scored on post 29 were absolutely crucial. However, game 3 is underway. And seems like both players are pretty comfortable so far. Myles actually is going for a column 8 Tetris here. It's going to knock one down. Fractal knocks down a traditional column 9. And as we saw in the last game, both players had to kind of endure the same situation towards around, I want to say mid 18, where they ran into either some rough piece sequences or they both just so happened to kind of misdrop it around the same time, whichever it was. But players had to display some incredible survival, and there were quite a couple of tedious droughts on 19 as well. However, they were able to manage the droughts and just simply survive, especially Fractal on level 25, an impressive ability to tap, or not to tap, but to roll that piece over to the right just to stay alive for an opportunity to play 29 and catch back up. However, Fractal committing to this could be a little bit dangerous for Fractal. Holding out for the long bar, and it looks like we might be in the middle of a drought here. Can Fractal weather the storm? Tries to open up the well. The well is open, accepting all long bars, and there it is. Tetris for Fractal. Myles sets up a pretty clever delay burn, but unfortunately covers up the well with those pieces. Reopens it, knocks down a Tetris as well. As of right now, both players not necessarily with the cleanest of stacks. However, I would say that this is a very comfortable position to be in. Not really too dangerous. And with that, Myles opens up a traditional right well, knocks it down, 255 to now 182. So we're looking kind of around the same transition ranges from the previous game, and beautiful adjustment right there. Anyways, Fractal has the board under control. Myles looks like will have a potential true lead of 100,000 points, depending on if he can continue to convert on these Tetrises. There it is. Myles and Fractal clean Tetris ready. Another Tetris for Fractal. 251 to now 324. Fractal knocks down a Tetris. And Myles is waiting on that same long bar. And there it is. Tetris for Myles and for Fractal. As you can see, there's actually a little bit of a line discrepancy between the two. And a lot of this, at least in this game in particular, happened when Fractal was building up incredibly high. The pieces were falling a lot more rapidly for Fractal, kind of separating them for a bit in the sequence. So Myles might be using Game Scout's famous strategy. But speaking about strategy, Fractal having to strategize where to place these pieces for the best chance of survival. Is able to efficiently open up the well. Now it's just waiting on the next long bar to convert. Nice adjustment on the J. There is 361 to 467. We are nearing the transition here. And there it is. Tetris for Fractal. Going to transition at 411. Meanwhile, Myles looking to try and grab one more here before transition. And Myles is going to transition at 562. 100,000 points separation between the two here on transition. Fractal having to try and deal with this left side. Able to get an ideal L piece. Trying to get back into Tetris ready position. There it is. Tetris for Fractal. 467 and now 5, or scratch that, 613. Another Tetris for Myles. Fractal, ooh, this kind of T-shaped valley is going to prove to be tedious. Does get the T piece and goes for a beautiful Z flat. What a well-placed placement right there over there for Fractal. Still waiting on the right pieces. Great J and O combination. Fractal is Tetris ready, but is now almost down by 200,000 points. Able to knock down a Tetris, but so is Myles. 692 to now 504. Myles knocks down another Tetris, goes up to 720. Looking at a very powerful game right here for Myles. However, it's not over till it's over. Fractal knocks down another Tetris, 562 to now 749. Myles gets the T piece to fill in that T chasm. Meanwhile, Fractal holding out for the long bar here. Both players with some pretty clean stacks. And Fractal had to do a little bit of stack sacrificing, forced to create a hole right there in the center, but it gets burned out relatively quickly. Goes for a split double right there. Myles knocks down a Tetris 788 to 601. Almost a 600,000 point separation between the two. Fractal knocks down a Tetris. Meanwhile, Myles runs into a little bit of a complication. So this is an opportunity for Fractal. Myles could try and go aggressive. And it looks like that's exactly what he's going to do. Knock down a dirty Tetris, 825 to now 669. Let's see what Fractal... No, just going to burn this out. We are level 26. So we're nearing level 29 here. Fractal, Tetris ready now. Myles sets up a delay burn. Looking for an L or a J, gets the corresponding L, and looks like Myles is going to be good to go. Knocks down a Tetris. Fractal goes for a triple, then knocks down a Tetris. 722 to now 898. Fractal was able to decrease the lead a little, but now Myles is actually running into some complications here. And this looks like a pretty costly situation as Fractal knocks down another Tetris. 791 to now 906. Fractal, Tetris ready now. Myles opens up the well, knocks down a Tetris, and so does Fractal. Fractal has one more Tetris here before level 29. Meanwhile, Myles has 2 or 3 Tetrises left, depending on how he burns his lines. There is Fractal transitions at 864. Meanwhile, Myles knocks down a Tetris, goes up to 982. Myles is getting set up for another one, looking to try and transition to level 29 here with a max, but is J/I dependent. Uses the I piece to fill in dependency. Now can only convert on 1 Tetris before 29. Meanwhile, Fractal is playing 20 or on level 30 right now, and there it is, a 29 Tetris for Myles. Goes up to 1,034,000. Both players having to try and kind of correct the stacks a little bit, get into a comfortable position. Meanwhile, various holes are being generated. Myles stack. Myles goes for the split triple, and Fractal now having to do some burning here. Needs to get a couple of pieces over to the left and to the right respectively, and does so effortlessly. But Myles able to clean this out just almost flawlessly. Fractal now eyepiece dependent right there in the center. Not going to try and go set up for that Tetris. Just going to bring this down. Meanwhile, Myles, after a perfect clear, running into some complications. As a matter of fact, this is incredibly complicated, but gets all the right pieces. Doesn't get an eyepiece in time to go and fill in the hole completely. But with that, Myles is now clean. Fractal now having to deal with some various complications as well. Myles still with around a 150,000 point lead. Fractal really hasn't been in a comfortable position at all here on the post 29. Here on level 34 for Fractal and level 33 for Myles. But Myles not able to get a couple pieces over to the left, and he hangs the eyepiece. Myles is going to top out yet again before Fractal. Fractal needs to get 1,097,000 here. Now, how is he going to decide to do that? Is he going to try and scale properly, or is he going to go for Tetrises? There's a lot of risk decided with each particular decision. But we're going to see what he's able to do. Going to go for a couple of flat themed placements. Looking for the right pieces here. Fractal now only a couple thousand points away from the 1 million point milestone here in this game. There it is, level 38 for Fractal. There it is. Fractal is officially maxed out. Needs around 92,000 more points. And ooh, that L piece was a little bit rough. However, Fractal is going to be able to handle it nicely. Able to throw pieces over to the left. And oh, several misdrops in a row for Fractal. So forced to do some more burns here. Essentially said he wanted to make this a little bit more interesting. Able to get that piece all the way over to the right. Would love to get... T-piece actually is perfect right there. Fractal now only down by around 50,000 points. A 97 is the score that Fractal needs. So far, level 41 over here for Fractal. At this point, 1 Tetris would be good enough. And Fractal, nice delay burn right there. Just now only 15,000 points away from the required score. And that single is going to be good enough, and Fractal takes game number 3. Absolutely ridiculous. Level 44, just simply outlasting Myles on 29. That has been the case for both of Fractal's wins here in this current matchup. Let's go ahead and count them down to game number 4. Here we go in 3, 2, 1, Tetris. All right, and the piece sequence seems to be similar. But here we go. Start to game 4. Myles needs to win this game in order to force a decider. Fractal needs to win this game to advance to the next round. But just so far, the story for a lot of these games that Fractal has been able to come out on top, or rather the 2 games that Fractal has been able to come out on top, has just been essentially him outlasting Myles on 29. He hasn't done anything terribly flashy. He hasn't been setting up for any post kill screen Tetrises. He's just been essentially scaling and surviving. And it is quite possible that in order for Myles to compete with Fractal here in this last game, or potentially last game, that Myles might have to focus more so on survival as opposed to trying putting some Tetrises on the board early on. Anyways, to start things off, we have some pretty even games here. Myles is going to have to deal with a minor misdrop, very minor. However, it might allow Fractal to gain an eventual 1 Tetris lead. Just really, this is the kind of game that we haven't really seen too much here in this matchup today. Both players not really in too much trouble. They're scoring Tetrises almost at around the same efficiency. Fractal actually had to forego using 2 long bars for Tetrises. Able to use 1 right there. Nice adjustment for Myles. There is another Tetris over there for Myles. 320, or not for Myles, but for Fractal. Now Myles scores a Tetris. 324 to now 326. We're looking at some double 600K transitions, maybe even the 650 transition territory. Myles is able to knock down the Tetris and would love to get an L piece here. And unfortunately didn't quite get it in time, so having to do a little bit more burns. Another Tetris for Fractal. So Myles is going to fall behind by approximately 40,000 points. Fractal had to, once again, not use 2 long bars for Tetrises. And Myles has been able to convert on the long bars. However, Fractal is going to be fine. Seems like so far this seed has been plentiful with the long bars. Question is, are we going to run into a nasty drought sooner than later? And Myles actually doing the best that he can to avoid creating a long bar dependency right there. And just like clockwork, RNG decides to punish Myles. And Fractal having to endure the same troubles too. But players knock down a Tetris, but Myles not quite in a position to really regularly score Tetrises. Looks like both players running into yet again another drought. Fractal is a little bit uncomfortably high, and same can be said for Myles. Myles now with a long bar dependency converts it, unable to use the long bar to score. Meanwhile, Fractal has kept a clean board the entire time. So 2 quick Tetrises for Fractal, bringing up Fractal up to a 100,000 point lead. Meanwhile, Myles has almost brought the entire stack down into a comfortable scoring position. But man, was that situation costly for Myles. We are nearing the transition. Fractal 2 Tetrises away from a 600k transition, despite those really tough droughts. And Myles is looking at a very respectable 550, or rather 530. Oh, what a beautiful delay burn set up over there by Fractal. It appears that both players are running into yet again another drought. Appears like RNG is compensating for all the long bars that were front loaded towards the earlier parts of the transition. But both players can try and score one more Tetris, and they're going to do so on the same long bar. 627 transition for Fractal, 521 transition for Myles. Myles down by 100,000 points, almost exactly here going into level 19. So he's going to have to really rely on post-transition and 29. There it is, another Tetris for Myles. 571 and now 677. Scratch that 703. Myles knocks down another Tetris. Right now, both players are matching each other's efficiency, which is great for Fractal and a problem for Myles. Myles needs Fractal to slow down at some point. There it is, Tetris for both Myles and Fractal. 731 and now 624. Fractal with a clean stack. Able to knock down a Tetris, and so is Myles. The lead hasn't changed since we hit transition. Both players are arguably completely in sync. Myles knocks down another Tetris, 679 and now 785. Myles forced to burn a double right there. And a lot of overhangs are being forced to be set off over here for Fractal, but he gets all the overhangs resolved. Myles wasn't Tetris ready to utilize either one of those long bars. 815 for Fractal. And looks like Fractal's going to be able to knock down Tetris. Same with Myles, but Fractal now having some complications. This is Myles' opportunity. Down by 100,000 points. He has the chance to right now make a massive comeback. He's Tetris ready. There it is. Tetris for Myles. 768 to now 856. Myles Tetris ready here. Holding up with the long bar. There it is. Tetris for Myles and a dirty Tetris for Fractal, trying to prevent Myles from gaining any ground. But Myles is going to knock down 2 quick Tetrises as Fractal knocks down just one. 917 to now 832. Myles down by now only 80,000 points, so he's been able to make some progress as both players running into some complications. But oh, Myles, a little bit of a tricky situation developing right here. Fractal is not in a position to score, so if Myles could potentially get out of this, still has the ability. Oh my gosh, Myles is setting up for the dirty Tetris. Not getting it though. Just deciding to burn out. Holding up for the right pieces. Nice flat burns. And with that, Myles is Tetris ready, but so is Fractal. Both players waiting on the same long bar here. And Myles could not utilize it while Fractal could. 967 and now 858. Myles is not Tetris ready. Opens up the well. Long bar finally comes. Tetris for Myles. 892 to now 1 million. Almost exactly for Fractal. Fractal has been maintaining this road to Tetris almost the entirety of this half of the post transition. There is another Tetris for Fractal. Meanwhile, Myles is still not able to really get the board in a comfortable position. 29 is just along the way, and With all these pieces not falling in Myles' favor, this doesn't look like this is going to be survivable. Myles burns a triple. Now he's got to find some way to get a piece over to the right, and it's not going to happen. Myles tops out at 919. Fractal with 1.15 is good for game number 4 and advances to the next round. Just a really tough situation over there for Myles. But up next, we're going to be having Dog versus DMJ. And if Dog is able to win the match between him and DMJ, we'll get a rematch between Dog and Fractal. So don't go anywhere. We still got plenty of Tetris action.
Hey everybody, this is your old pal Vandweller, host of Classic Tetris Monthly. If you like this video, hit thumbs up. If you want to see more videos like it, please subscribe and bang that notification bell. And follow us on Twitch at twitch.tv/monthlytetris. Thank you, and have a nice day.